They asked Armut what went wrong with Mad Lions in 2022. Are you ready for this quote? He goes, I think we had a huge downgrade with the roster, and it also affected the rest of the players. Are you ready? Like me, El Yoya, and Kaiser, I think we were really affected by the downgrade gameplay-wise. Homie, you were the downgrade. Right, this is going to be the latest episode of the Best Damn League show period with me and Dom. And I will just say at the beginning of the show, just because we didn't do it for all those years, is if you want to support this channel, Last 3 Nation and the show, good ways you can do it. Could subscribe to this Twitch channel if you're watching live now. If you're watching it as a VOD, you can like the VOD. That actually in the modern day does actually help, by the way. I know it didn't in the past. It used to just be sort of it actually does in theory work now. Obviously, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you like other shows, Power Spike, Someone in Insight was yesterday, the VODs will be on the channel when you go and check there by the time this comes out. Anyway, let's get into it. So obviously, we're on the third one now, Dom, of these. And this is why I was saying this on Someone in Insight. I nailed this in advance because I've just seen so many esports over the years. I know how different formats work out and how like the expectations should be. But I've said this in the past. When you give me only 3 weeks, Dom, of round robin, and I just play everyone in those 3 weeks, I'm cool with this format. I don't mind it. Me and Monty were even saying, in theory, I hate Super Weeks. I don't even mind in this case because remember, there's nothing to be won by finishing first. All you do is go to the groups. So the joke is, your real task on this first section is great. It's actually appropriate for BO1, in my opinion, Dom, because you don't want BO3s now, because yes, there's a bunch of bad teams. Like, who wants to see Astralis play loads of BO3s?
Yeah,
so what you actually want is, by the way, I wouldn't want to see them play either. They're terrible right now. So what this format does is, it gives us a taste of what the whole league was like at the beginning. You just kick out the two by far worst teams at the moment, and then we start like the next fit, and then it's on to the next. So I don't mind the Super Weeks for this. I don't mind the 3 weeks of BO1s. This is like, I can sort of tolerate that. Like, I think this format already's paying dividends, mate. I'm even sort of hyped for the BO1s. Like I say, when I would be like, you know me, I'm always like, guys, it's week 3. Let's not overreact to a BO1. Like, you know, there's all those weeks to go. There's the meta switches. Like, this is actually, I think this is way more appropriate for League. I think they're on to a winner with this format.
Yeah, I really like the format. I mean, part of the reason why you're more hyped is before you'd go into that last week and you would eliminate a lot of the scenarios because you're only actually having 3 out of 18 games, right?
Yes.
Where now you're actually doing a third of the entire games for the split in this last week. So the amount of like possibilities that you're left with, it's like, I mean, you could have teams that have, 3 wins not making it. Even Heretics could not make it, even though they have 3 wins. So you have Heretics, Koi, Fnatic, you have obviously Astralis, XL, like they're all just sitting there fighting for that playoff spot still, or they're still fighting for that bottom 2. So I feel like the last week, there's just going to be so many hype games. You're going to get it to the last day, and it's going to come up with some bangers. It's going to be like, okay, well, can Fnatic beat SK? If Fnatic don't beat SK, they might not advance. Can XL actually, beat Vitality in a game that it looks like they're completely doomed in? Like, these might
at least give hope or something.
games.
Yeah, exactly. Or just to deny Vitality the top spot. Yeah, so there's still a reason to play for everyone. I agree as well. And by the way, here's the mad angle people don't think about. You know, if you are on the last week of LEC Summer, Dom, and you're the team in 10th place and it is impossible for you to make the playoffs, you don't try hard in those games. I'm sorry you don't, because mentally you can't. There's nothing to play for. In this scenario, there is, Dom, because actually you're going to potentially be on the chopping block while your team sits out watching the groups and the playoffs. Mate, they might replace you. Like, this is actually an audition to stay in the team this last week. So as you say, even XL should still be trying. I mean, we're going to get into it, but like, there's worlds where like maybe Abadag is like, man, you're going to try this week, Vethio? There's all those fucking storylines waiting in the wings. Here's what we'll do. Since we barely talked about this team in past episodes, and I notice because of their score, it's just because of the score, guys, calm down. Dom obviously didn't include BDS in that because realistically, they probably only have to win 1 game and they're going to be in the groups, right? Let's talk about BDS first, because I have to say, I'll put my hands up in the air. I thought this roster was about 10 times shitter than they are. They actually have shown some promise. And I'll even say, you know what? Yeah, I do love to hate on the stupid fans who overrate him Fnatic, but actually Adam's had some pop-off games. Like, this is looking interesting now, suddenly, this BDS team.
Yeah, so actually, I think they've already qualified. They're 4-2, which means that they...
Does that guarantee them?
Yeah, 4-2 guarantees them because a lot of the other teams like face off versus each other. So like
right.
So like for XL, I think they play against like Heretics as well. So a lot of the teams are left. So the way it works out is that BDS are actually already guaranteed at 4-2. I mean, I'm liking how they're playing. Yeah. I'm liking how they're playing. I think they're really just buying into their own identity as a team. Now, one thing that people are going to need to like bring down the hype on is they got into like the best fucking meta possible, right?
They
like,
did, of course. The joke is you can literally play the Adam champions in the top lane. Like,
yes, you can play
it's
all
not
of them.
really it's Dom, if I was to track, like 2 charts to show what's going on, if I just showed like Olaf win rate versus like Adam win rate and LEC, the 2 lines would be, you'd be like, there's 1 line. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it'd be fucking identical. You wouldn't be able to see
exactly.
The the other
They'd be like, where's the other line? Where's the Adam line? And that is it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just like that right now. So I think Adam is really effective in these metas, right? He can play all the champions. When he came into LEC, he was the Renekton player, right? He was playing Renekton in almost all of his games. Now you have Cassante, which is another champion that fits into like Adam's playstyle. Sure. I don't know if he's even played it yet, but it's something.
He is a 1v1. Look, pretty sweet. He's a 1v1 player. Let's be real. He's like an old school top player in that sense, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a 1v1 player. He likes to take combat summoners as well. He's pretty good at using Ghost, like compared to other top laners. So there's a couple, like, I liked his Jax game. I thought that was pretty impressive that he was able to perform on Jax, because that's a champion that doesn't necessarily fit directly into his bruiser playstyle. I mean, it is technically a bruiser, but Jax operates differently than the ones that Adam likes to play. Normally, Adam's champions, like, he likes to be stronger than you from level 1 and just control the entire lane phase from level 1, be able to, like, push the lane in at will in the early game, and then, like, once it hits level 3 and 4, the bounce back comes in. He's just going to try to murder you. He just wants to kill you at that timing. So I mean, he's playing obviously really well. I think the big test for Adam is when the meta inevitably gets away from Olaf, Cassante, Renekton, Jax, Darius. When those champions stop being playable and we get into like Jace GP, that's when you're going to be like the test of, can you actually compete with the best top laners on these like weak side champions? Someone's
just a casual fan. I know the way Dom said it like that didn't actually distinguish between those champions, but when he said it like, when he can no longer play Darius, right? Darius has probably been viable in the last 10 years, about 3 months of the last 10 years. And that when you said that, but what if it's like a Jace versus GP? Jace and GP have been the top lane meta for about 5-7 years or something like that. Yeah, so the joke is he's also pointed out essentially like this is the most niche, perfect, almost meta, and then you've got the Cassante factor. But the problem is almost inevitably we're going to cycle out of this meta, because that's just how the game works in League, and what champions come back strong again in it. Like GP's always going to eventually get back in the meta. Like you say, Jace is always eventually going to be like a carry top again.
I think it's coming soon, right? Like there's changes now to crit, right? They're changing crit right now. I think a lot of these GP builds are going to be more viable, and people are going to be looking to play him again. And GP is also a champion that stylistically counters a lot of bruisers, because it's just annoying. Like, you just get barreled from fucking long range, you get poked with Q. Like, that's just a very annoying champion to deal with. Historically, though, you don't get the best Jace players in the world in LEC. So you don't have to play against the top tier, Eastern Jaces. So I will say though, I'm looking forward to that Photon guy giving it a try. Though he looks like he might be a bit cheeky, mate. He might go a bit wild. He might try something or other. And by the way, I've got a fun angle for you, because one thing about BDS, even if I like you, even if you're a friend of mine, I'll never let you talk bullshit and just sit there like, yeah, no problem, son. Like, my whole shit is like, shut the fuck up. So even though I like Grabs, and I've even done a lot of work on my channel to try and promote him and give him his space and say, like, don't judge him on the team so he's back, right? I heard that he tried to make some sort of statement where it was sort of like, actually, if you look at the line, because obviously he's not the coach anymore, is he? It was sort of, if you look at the BDS lineup, we did actually have most of these players like within the BDS organization. It's like, yeah, homie, you weren't playing them. So when like Crowley now is like better than Reckless. By the way, that's not even a controversial statement. That's not even a hot take. Crowley is better than Reckless. Like, if you just have eyes, the joke is if I took the fucking nameplates off and say, which one of these ADCs do you want? The Varus that does an ult and 3 autos and loses the whole game and never was in the fight, or do you want fucking Crowley just carrying fights? And you'd all pick Crowley, even a fucking Reckless fan in theory would, right? But the problem with that is, Grabs, you weren't playing the guy. The guy who's actually the best player on your team right now, and probably like top 4 ADC in the league, if not better. Like top 3.
It wasn't even in the fucking game, and we all said it, like, at least give it a go when they were losing at the end. That was the most egregious part, wasn't it? Is that at least at the end when it was sort of doomed, chuck him in there, because I know behind the scenes, look, people will know because of his LS streams and your streams, he's a little bit of a spicy guy. I've heard behind the scenes, mate, he's not even like toxic like that. He's just like, because he's from one of those countries where it's a bit harsher, he's just like, his jokes are a bit rougher, or he just gets annoyed if he loses. Like, he actually seems to be like, he has generally a pretty good like mentality, work ethic. Like, he always finds his way when he comes back. Have you noticed now, if you give this guy a chance in LEC, he always delivers. Always slightly overperforms what the team should do, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Look at his career. Look at Crowney's career. He got that SK gaming team to play off.
In it. The joke was they'd given up on that team when they got him in limit, didn't they? They were just like, who gives a shit? And just made it.
Yeah, I mean, that SK Gaming team, I mean, the biggest thing that you have to look at when it comes to that season, number one, that was the closest season of LEC ever. That was the one where Origin, which was Upset and Alfari, they went 6-12. They finished 10th. 10th place, 6-12 is crazy.
Like, and everyone voted their top player the best. And behind the scenes, everyone said their ADC was the best. So everyone said 2 of the 5 positions was the worst team in the whole league.
Yep. And Xerxes was on that team as well, which explains XL. So no.
We'll get to that later.
We'll bring that in later. We're
don't worry.
Leaving that flame there. But like, yeah, I feel like those types of performances matter so much more to me than if you're like on a top team and you do well on a top team. Like you get like top 3 with a team that should arguably be top 2. I always value those performances super highly. So a lot of people think I just promote Crowny because he's my friend. But part of the reason that I became friends with him is because I valued him as a player and I asked him a lot of questions about AD carry because I thought he was a reliable source on matchups and insight into the bot lane. So he was somebody that I could have these conversations with. So he's always overperforming. The fact that Xmatty was starting over him for a full year, I said it last year. I mean, it's almost like bad that he's my friend, because if he wasn't my friend and I just like fucking hated him as a person, then people would take my opinions more seriously on him and maybe we could have had more fucking push. But I mean, once again, you're just seeing that he's reliable. BDS still has problems. They still have like one catastrophe a game. And once teams start like, you know, getting back together, I mean, it just, you have one moment where you're like, oh shit, they were pushing and they all died. Fuck. Crowny still can get caught sometimes. Obviously that can be a fatal flaw of AD carry, but it's better to have somebody who's good that has a fatal flaw than somebody who's just bad the whole game. Like it is what it is. The team is solid. I don't expect them to do better as time progresses. I'm not going to say that they're going to be top 4 at the end of the year or the end of even the split, but I like the direction that they're playing in. It seems like they actually play like a team. They seem like they like each other. How big is that in LEC right now? When you look at other teams, look at Fnatic cameras, look at XL cameras, it's not even just when they're losing, right? If you look at their fucking, the content they're producing, you look at the cameras that are behind the scenes, they look fucking depressed, bro. They look completely dejected. They don't look like they actually enjoy each other's presence.
Dude, Reckless doesn't even talk in those, like in the comms, you can never catch Reckless saying anything. So yes, you know, like they're all like wondering, humanoid trolling, he's just sat there silently. Even the Rux guy tries to join in, you know. By the way, the reason why, though, I think this is so mad, like, because it is essentially the crowd he showed most of these games, is, mate, if you look at a lot of the teams, some of the big teams, it's the bloody ADC that's letting them down. XL, you'd take Crowny tomorrow if you could do that trade. Fucking Fnatic, bro, if Fnatic had Crowny, first of all, he would fit that vibe. And secondly, they'd have won half these games. Like, they'd have beaten Vibes. You know what I mean? They'd have won a lot of these games. Like, I think it's actually just showing, the form's showing for these players.
He's one of the players that suffers from like Reddit narratives like the most. If you go into fucking threads, everyone just talks shit on him permanently. Like, what I was going to make was that the damn piece of evidence against Crownshot was that he played a best of 5 that went 5 games against Fnatic and Upset played better than him in that best of 5 when Upset was considered the best AD carry in all of LEC. Like, this is just, how is that the gotcha moment where they're like, yeah, he just doesn't belong in LEC anymore. He can't beat Upset in a best of 5. It's like, dude, no one's beating Upset in a best of 5 like right now in terms of outperforming them consistently 1-to-1 in like history. That is just not something that happens frequently. So I can't believe that was the thing that made him go from like, oh, he's a playoff player to no, he just doesn't belong in LEC anymore.
Yes, absolutely. Right, here's the thing. I think we've done a nice little segment on BDS there. Props. Like, one thing I like to do with this show, this is what's different from our Twitter persona or bigger things, is because we are doing like week to week to week. This reminds me of how power rankings work. Like, it doesn't matter if you like the team. If a team goes 3-0, you have to give them their props. So I just thought on this segment, since we flamed BDS and we all did think they were going to be shit again, fair play, we'll give them their flowers now. Not least because, spoiler, I don't think they're going to be that good in the group stage, so we'll get to that later. But another team, Dom, that deserve their flowers. This team really deserve their flowers, mate. If you think who they beat, it's got to be SK Gaming. So where are you at on this one? Because there's a couple of angles on this one. Like, obviously the big story, and let's be real, this was the big story of the offseason, is it is kind of fucking like, it's like what you call found money. Like, how the fuck did SK end up with Marcoon? Like, this guy always was looking good in XL. Like, and he's fucking smurfing right now, mate. He's looking real. What's he like? He must be one of the best junglers in the whole league right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. The comparison that I was making on my streams, and we caught on this at the same time when I was doing it with Treats, and I wanted to run this past you, is that we see SK like misfits of last year. That's literally who they are to us. We think that they are misfits of last year. They have the same type of identity where they
yes.
Well, I mean, they have irrelevant, but like if you see how the team plays, it's like they have like like a solid bot lane. Like their bot lane's good. Their mid lane is getting resources and he's able to carry games. They have like a jungler who does stuff early game and they have a weak side top laner. It feels like you're watching Misfits where at some point they're probably going to just cap off. They're going to be playing against players that are just fucking better than them, right?
Yep.
And at that point, like, you know, if you put them in a best of 5 and you get Misfits out of their comfort zone, the SK Misfits out of their comfort zone, you remember what it looked like, right?
Yep.
They weren't able to actually compete. I think that you're going to run into the same type of issue. Maybe they can be better than Misfits, but I think that they'll still end up with an issue when it comes to laning versus these top players.
Yes. I mean, I have to say, like, I'll give it to Marcoon. I've always thought he was legit, but now he's actually, here's the cool thing. Because, look, on XL, it wasn't like it was a top team. He was obviously battling just to make playoffs, but I think this lineup is worse than most of the XL lineup. So I actually think mad props to him. If you can do it from behind as a jungler or on a worse team, you are just a very good jungler. Like, that's the whole problem. I noticed Marcoon in an interview himself when he was talking about Yike did make the points that you and Monty have all made, which is like, essentially, he's in the dream scenario and he's got like winning lanes. Everything's going great. He doesn't have to do things at times. The script plays from Marcoon isn't doing that. Marcoon's the man on this team. Like, this guy's killing it. But I'm with you because let's be real. Aside from Marcoon, like, remember, the irrelevant guy's a weak side player. He's not going to be some star impact player. The other player you need is fucking Certus. And the problem I have with this is, Dom, I don't think he's a bad player, but I do think he's a BO1 player. Like, you give him the right champion in a BO1, he can pop off. He can have some nice moments in fights where he does a ballsy play, teleports in with 20 health or whatever. Like, will he do that in a best of 5 though? You know what I mean? That's where I do it. I'm with you. Unfortunately, this team, it should be the one that makes it to that stage, but then just immediately crumbles. Much like in the past. That's why the Misfits analogy is good, because everyone knew, and we've predicted it a million times, Misfits could never have won a BO5. It's no hate. It's just the way the game works, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, but like, to be honest, if you're SK Gaming, you want to be Misfits, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want to be at that tier where you're making playoffs again, because for now, like a year and a half, they've just been shit, right? They get eliminated every single time. In the regular season, like whatever, they play 36 games an entire fucking year. Like, you want to then become Misfits and actually have a chance to do something. And then, you know, from there, let's see if they can do what Misfits couldn't do and add a couple core pieces that bring you to that next level. Like, who knows what ends up being the issue? Because right now the players are playing individually well. So like, you can't say that you replace actually proactive with the decisions that you make roster wise, because you're going to be close. You're going to be close to getting over the edge, but what really makes your team function, right? Is it Marcoon's early jungle pathing? Do you like the fact that you have a weak side top laner, or is that a liability at points? How does the bot lane fare like going forward in different metas? There's all of these different things that you're going to have to use. Obviously, right now it would be ridiculous to say to replace anyone, but I just think that's the only way that you break this team out of like a 5th, 6th, like 4th maybe tier to the next level. Like, how do we become top 3 or one of the best teams in LEC?
Problem with this team is, I've talked about this on past ones, but I'll just say it now, but I'll say it with a little bit more juice, because I like to fucking draw the tease all the bombs out, right? You know, I've said in the past, there's a world where maybe Jankos could have been on SK Gaming. I'll go one further and give you a little bit more info, because as time goes by, I can reveal more and more. Here's the banger for you, Dom. I've heard it was up to SK if Jankos was the jungler or Marcoon, but that what happened was, it was one of those ones where, you know, the off-season works. It's like, you have to like decide, like, do I pull the trigger now? Do I not? So I've heard it was one where they were they just told like Marcoon, so yeah, we'll take you. And then they found like that Jankos was available for like quite a low buyout actually, because that off season didn't work out, trying to sell him for loads. So basically they could have had him, but they sort of decided, because I used to work for SK Game and I know the guy who's the owner. They just decided like, look, we said to Marcoon we'll take him, so we'll honor our world. That's worked out for them. That's actually turned out to be, even though some would say it's a silly move. Like, everyone should want Jankos, the name's value. And if people are wondering, by the way, how could they afford Jankos though? Here's what you need to know about SK. SK operates like those small market teams in big American sports. It's not like you don't pay your superstar, Dom. If you play in like Milwaukee or something, yeah, the superstar's going to get paid the 30 mil, don't worry. So here's the thing. You talked about in there. I've heard like Treats was the guy who was getting paid in some of the past teams. He was getting a good fucking salary, mate, for LEC. So they'll invest in like 1 or maybe 2 stars, but they're not going to spread across the board. So they've obviously invested in this case in Marcoon, or if it had been Jankos. So that's paid off at the moment. And as you say, even as a team, actually, if you look how they're sort of signing players and who they're signing and who they're like, they're actually even doing it a bit like a Misfits or a Schalke. You like riding the edge of, you're obviously not spending the most, but you're just trying to get mad value and take the right gambles and take the, like, for example, you gamble on the right player who drops down, he's still good. worked, like when Schalke got IWDominate years ago or whatever, then you gamble on like the up-and-coming player that maybe other people don't want, like a certain... As long as you do the right gambles, you can end up in these scenarios if you're shrewd in business. So I think they're another team where it's like, if you know what they're working with, you know what the expectations, they're killing it. Great job so far. No complaints.
Yeah, great job so far. And then also I think it lends credence to the idea of roster building and how you make a cohesive based off player strengths. Like if you think that X and DOS were lane that is actually solid with resources, then you pair him with somebody like Irrelevant that's a really solid weak side top laner. Like he doesn't look like a rookie. To be honest, the thing about Irrelevant that's so funny is when you watch him, like he's most comparable to IWDominate. You know, like he understands how to drop waves, ward for dives, lose the least, even give his life for waves that he can't lose. I think that's the hardest part, because a lot of these young players, when they start weak siding, they see the pressure coming and they're like, I just have to fucking leave. And they get themselves too far behind in the game to be able to be relevant later on, where he's willing to, do that blip. Oh, I'm weak siding, but I'll die for this wave. And it's not going to hurt me that much because I still have TP. Or like, I'm going to absorb resources. If they come to me, I'm going to try to trade like a flashes. Maybe I'll be able to outplay them 1 versus 300 turn. But even if that's not the case, I'm able to at least make them sweat for the situation. When you see those types of plays, like I really respect that as somebody who watches the game, because that takes a while to be comfortable. It just feels bad to be in that situation. And a lot of players have just a really drastic response to what's happening. They're like, oh, well, I'm getting dove. I gotta leave. I'm getting fucking dove. We can't be near this turret at all. Where in reality, contesting the dive at certain points and understanding how strong is this dive really? What champions do they have that are coming to dive me? How much does it matter if I dive versus get the wave? Like being able to do all those calculations and just have a feel for what the right play is, I think that is super, super valuable in a player. So I've been really impressed with him. And just the team makes sense. It just makes sense when you look at the players. And I just really appreciate that type of team building as opposed to what it looks like XL and Fnatic did, which was like, oh, all these players are considered good. If we put them all together, then how could they not be good?
Exactly, yes. No, I'm with you, because I actually think the same thing, Dom. I mean, my analogy, if it was IWDominate, the other one's Impact, isn't it? If you want to carry through mid and ADC, get IWDominate, get Impact, get the Irrelevant guy. They've just shown they can do it, mate. They're just good weak side. Because as you say, they have the sacrificial mindset. Because that's, you'll know this behind the scenes. I'm sure they talk about on stream if they come on, to be fair. One of the biggest pet peeves of pro top laners is if they have to weak side, some idiot casuals, like he keeps dying in top lane. And it's like, bro, if I just leave the lane, then the game's over anyway. Like, we're totally behind. Like, no junglers ever come in top, so they're also just banging my mid in all day long. And like you say, I not only lose this wave, I might fuck up the whole wave state, and now I'm just wrecked, like I can't do anything. So
I might lose my fucking turret.
Exactly. Yeah, so sometimes, as you say, even I always think one of the biggest areas that there's a gap in modern day League of Legends between fan understanding and pro understanding is in the modern day, it's when is a death worth it in pro play? It's not never die. That's some fucking old school thinking. Like in the modern day, for most positions, it's like, was the death worth it? Like, for example, you know this, there's a million times people think Perks inted on side lane, and it's like, actually, even if he gets caught there, sometimes it's fine for what it did to the rest of the map and the map pressure and what it did with the wave state and stuff. Like, sometimes it's acceptable, and he was gambling that he wouldn't, and then he would have won big time, So I think it's just one of those areas where I don't blame fans, but it's hard to sort of educate them on it in a live match, obviously. They just have to figure it out yourself, boys. Not what we can do for you there.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch the top players do it, you just see it's like, okay, just make the judgment in your head. How much gold and experience is he going to give over by dying versus how much gold and experience is he going to give over by giving every single wave plus like plates and turrets? Like if you give over 2 plates, that's already more than just the kill, right? Like if you give over 2 plates, you've given over 350 gold, right? So then if you're giving over waves on top, it's like you're compounding. Like you could end up giving over 1,000 gold because you weren't willing to die for 1 wave, depending on what champion you're playing against. And now that people take Demolish and they have so much access to destroying a turret in even 1 single wave, like this actually matters so much. So yeah, I mean, it's just big props to him. When you watch him play, he seems like a veteran. He seems like a smart fucking person. And I just appreciate that over mechanics any day.
And I'll even just throw in the opposite version of that, which I also ranted about, so I'll make it really quick, and I'll just do a video one day. The other version of that is people still also think every kill's good. And you know what tilts this shit out of me, Dom, when there's a dragon fight in like 35 seconds and then everyone wastes 4 ults to kill a fucking support that step forward. It's like, or the jungler dies to get the kill or whatever. It's like, what are you doing, bro? Like, that isn't worth, in most cases, So let's move to another team then. So obviously people want to hear it. So let's do the XL talk, shall we? Because, mate, fucking hell. Like, you know what? As bad as they are, that Fnatic game, like, that was your best chance, bro. That was an abomination, that fucking game. What the hell was that? That was the one time they were supposed to get a win, really, you know, like an actual real win. This team's so broken.
I don't know what to say about this team. It's not only are like, it's weird, right? Because it's like all the players are worse mechanically now.
Yep.
All of a sudden, they're all just unable to lane. They're all just like either dying 1v1 or losing 2v2s. I mean, if you go back into their game versus Astralis and you watch the level 3 fight between Draven Nautilus on Patrick Target,
oh, it's pathetic, wasn't it?
Like, it was just, I mean, they hooked the wall twice. I mean, just the way that it fucking went down. It was one of the most ugly sequences I've seen this entire year. So I don't know, how did they all mechanically become bad at the same time? That's fucking weird. And then on top of that, like, their team mentality, when you look at the players that they signed, right? What I was thinking is Origin, right? They're going to be a team that scales.
Yeah, exactly.
They have a weak side top laner. All the players are fine in their own right, but they all are just scaling players. They're all just players that don't have that like aggressive streak really in them. Video was not the guy who would just smash fucking lane every single time. He was somebody who you gave resources to, and then he would be able to carry the game later on. So when you have all the players and then you see the conclusions that they've came across, it doesn't even make sense to me, like, stylistically. Like, why are they trying to be Hans and Mickey X? Why is their bot lane think that they're Hans and Mickey X? They're not Hans and Mickey X. They're Targamas and Patrick. Give them some fucking like Lulu Sivir and just let them scale. Like, that's how you're supposed to win games. It's almost like they think that the way that they win games is like less justified because it's a less like attractive way to win games. You're not stopping your opponents. You're just like slowly choking them out. And they don't even want to buy into that. They're like, oh, well, that won't work if we get to like the next level. You know, like, eventually that play style has its limits. So we're going to try to be like the aggressive team. But it's like, dude, you're not going to even make top 8 in LEC if you keep this shit up. So it's really fucking weird to see not only their individual player skill, just their ideas on what their strengths are as a team just don't seem like they're based in reality at all. It's very strange. And then you combine that,
dude. No, go on, keep going.
Well, I was just gonna say, you combine that with the attitudes that you see on camera. It just looks so fucking depressing. I mean, it's like week 2 and you're seeing Video just like have a breakdown after one of the games. It's like, what the fuck happened? Like, it's 2 weeks and we're already like this upset. Yeah. Something must be like, it must feel really, really bad to play in the team if you feel that emotionally like down in 2 weeks.
Here's the thing on the first topic, the idea of like that, because that's the other thing that kills me about this team, Dom. I hate people who fucking slander the concept of scaling in League. Like, I've always thought LS was right about that shit. Like, if you can do it, the joke is it's a way to win by the game just making you stronger without you doing any big risks. Like, sometimes it is really good. Some players are really good at it. But as you say, it's not like this is a team of like, they're all in good form and they're just trying to play scaling and they don't understand it's like an early game script. They're even doing bad in lane. They're not getting through lane. They're not getting to the point they can scale. The rare times they are even late game, because here's the problem, Dom. Obviously, when we get into the Cersei topic, it's going to be the idea of like, but he's always had like a late game thing. Dude, he doesn't even seem that good at macro. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is this? So I'll go across the board with some of the things I've heard, because I've been reaching out to coaches and people who coached them in the past and people who've played with them to try and find out from people who know behind the scenes, like, what the fuck do you think's going on with like this player, or why is this going? I'll give you a few things I've heard. So I've heard, for example, and this is fucking mad, This just shows how we even get tricked by narratives because we're trying to infer and figure out and speculate. I've heard basically, even in G2, they understood Targamas had some of these issues in lane and would have issues even with certain champions in the meta. And it sounds like, look, I'm sure they also had to cater around Flackard. Dude, the joke is it sounds like it was actually Targamas that was sort of hiding in fucking G2. Everyone else thought it was the other way around. Like, no, he's fucking locked in by Flackard. Give him, because obviously when you already expected the lane not to be that strong, then if he would do a nice roam when they got ahead, like, oh, cool, maybe this guy has more. Like, even though I do think some of the things he did last year, he was a much better player last year, I can sort of see why they're saying that to me, mate. It does sort of almost seem like G2, they're almost laughing that they traded this player away now. You know, I flamed them, but
for me,
they're looking
like,
right.
Is that really like an undercover secret, though? Like, Targamas obviously was not good in lane last year. That was the whole criticism of their bot. Like, I don't know what XL thought they were getting, but I mean, for me, it's like Patrick was also just a player that to me has just been perennially overhyped by just other pros. He's just a pro's pro. Everyone just thinks that he's insane, but when you watch him play, I mean, there's something missing. Like, I mean, even if his support is completely inting trades and stuff, he's not playing well individually himself. So this whole team, I mean, it's just so weird to see them try to interact. And I mean, I just wonder what like a day is like. Like, what are they like together when they're sitting in the car as 5 on the way back from the studio? What are the vibes? Are they just all fucking silent? depressed, looking down at their phones? Are they talking to each other? Can they even laugh it off in any way? Self-deprecating humor. Is there anything going on, or do they actually just all fucking hate each other? Like, what is going on between the 5 players? Because there's no way that even if they have individual like issues, the team would be this bad unless there's like the mental game on top of it also being completely done.
Well, I have to say one thing from the little I know about some of the players I do know the personality of. Some of them I'm just guessing from voice checks and interviews like the rest of everyone. One thing I will say that they did fail on this team is you've already addressed like 2 factors I came up with as lenses to analytically look at teams beyond just are the players good and like can you draft a comp. The 2 factors I came up with is what is called personality balance. So for example, if you're going to have like a Reckless, you need to have a perks or something. You have to balance them out in some ways. And also the other one is obviously stylistic, like you said, which you've made the point many times with the Immortals example. It's a classic one. So I would say they failed on both regards, it looks like. Because if you look at the personality angle, Dom, who's the person who's going to cheer Vethio up and pat him on his back? He ain't in the team, mate. So what you've got Vethio and Targamas. And if you don't know, Targamas is one of those Belgian people where he's more, as far as I can tell, on the French side as opposed to on like the Dutch side, as it were. So they're essentially Vethio and Targamas. If you don't know, French culture is a bit emo. When things are going badly, if they don't sort of believe in it, if they don't get a good feeling, they do get a bit emo and they will say things like that sound super drastic. But then look at the other 3 players, right? Odoamne, Circe, and Patrick, right? Odoamne and Circe are from Romania and Patrick is from Czech Republic, right? These are the guys where it's like if things are going bad, you just shut the fuck up. You take the load on yourself. You just think, oh, let's get better. Or you might even flame. Like they don't have a perks, if you know what I mean. They don't have like a captain who can rally people or like, oh, I could trust in this guy. They don't have that player. That's the downside. It's like every player on paper, I agree with you still. I still think if you look at them, if it was a different year, different meta, different team, all of these players could be like top 5 at their role. But at the moment, nobody is top 5 at their role, if you know what I mean. It's bad right now. Should we do do the Circe segment? Should we transition to that?
Sure, go for it. We can talk about Circe.
Because here's the thing. This is a problem that you always have with, like, if people don't know, there's actually terminology that's gone away now. You know this. Back in the day, the premise was people will circle jerk a narrative, but that then immediately infers, once you let the circle jerk die down, someone else goes, here is the counter circle jerk. And it's just the opposite. So now that's already happened on Reddit if people didn't see. Because everyone hard flamed Circe because he already wasn't that popular a player for the whole first 2 weeks. Now the counter narrative is everyone's just scapegoating Circe. It's like, really? Like, look, he might not be the worst player on Excel, but he's also not good. Like, he's having problems. He's not doing anything.
Yeah, he's doing nothing. But I mean, this is the thing is like Circe doesn't do much when he's playing meta champions. He always needs to have like just those weird champions that people aren't good at playing against. When I saw him on this team, I'm like, oh, hopefully he plays Zac. That was the first thing I thought. I'm hoping that he just plays Zac. He was always good at that champion. It's viable now. Radiant Virtue's a good fucking item. Your team is probably going to do nothing anyway. It scales well throughout the game. He's able to engage, uses weird ability. He's just good at using weird abilities. It's so weird. It's so strange to say. I don't know a better way to put it than that. But he's good at using the abilities that everyone feels like are dog shit to use, like Rumble Ult, like Zac.
Exactly, yes.
Zac Q. He's just good at using weird abilities. So just give him some weird fucking abilities. When he has to play Vi and he just has to R the right person at the right time, like he's not going to be able to do it better than somebody like Bo. He's not going to do it better than other people that are in the LEC. That's just not his advantage. He's pretty good at farming. He's efficiency based. And he's good at using these fucking weird team fight defining abilities as well. It's not just like, oh, like this strange like ability that no one really cares about. He's good at using these team fight defining abilities. Gragas ult, like he's good at using, Zac Q, finding Zac engages. He's good at using Rumble ult. He's strong when people don't know exactly what he's doing. And I think part of his strength comes from the fact that a lot of people don't normally play against people that are at his level on his champions. So that is a massive edge. That's a massive edge in and of itself. If people don't know what an optimal team fight looks like from your eyes, it's hard for them to play against it. And I just feel like he's just becoming a meta jungler. He's playing Wukong, he's playing Vi, playing Sejuani and all this shit. He's just never going to be an effective jungler on meta picks that people play against every single day.
Here's the thing, Dom. This is where I actually think you start to fix the team, except that they might be fucked this week and they might just have to wait a while till they come back to LEC spring. Here's where you fix it. The one thing I've always promoted, because he's told a lot of great anecdotes in interviews behind the scenes, I've heard way more stories, is Youngbuck is supposedly really good at getting buy-in from players to do a band-aid, like you're just picking these champions. He needs to actually say to his Cersei, I'm going to tell you who you are, Cersei, not you. Because I have a problem with this, Dom, which is, you might know, I did like a reflections with Cersei in the off-season, and I talked about, and I've had him on shows, and I've, from years and years ago, since he first came in LEC, and he has a habitual problem, Dom, that has to be addressed, which is, this might blow your mind. I've told you before, but if you're a casual fan, this is going to blow your mind. He thinks the Reddit narrative is that he is this late game farming jungler, that he wasn't that. He only did that because teams asked him to. He still thinks of himself from like Unicorns of Love, like 5-6 years ago, as some sort of like aggro player, and that he can play any style. And he's just a really good jungler, and that it's just people putting him sort of in a box and being reductive and making it like that. Bro, I've got to tell you, you just don't know yourself. Like, are you accidentally watching Jankos VODs? You aren't. You are that player. You are the most ridiculously farm jungle. As Dom says, you have your own weird picks as well, which almost have to play those styles. You're never going to play fucking Lee Sin or something, or Lee. That's not you. And don't do that, by the way. Don't play Vi. It's terrible when you do. And then on top of that, here's the killer for me. The problem with Cersei, and this is another lens that I've had to learn over the years, Dom. I had it with Memento once when he was on the Schalke. There's a bunch of players this has happened to, which is when you're looking like the best player, and especially I've learned it's the jungler, Dom. If the jungler looks amazing on like one of the bottom teams and is having all these good games, it makes you think, put him on G2 and he would own it. It's like, actually, maybe that's all he can do. And what he's doing looks good. Here's the problem I have with the Cersei story. Even if I ignore that he doesn't seem to know his own identity and what works for him, even his core identity, like the idea of like he just farms and then there's like a late game they're going to win with macro. He doesn't even actually seem like the best at that. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't seem like some genius player. Like, I tell you what, you can flame the fuck out of people like Reckless, Froggen for being passive. If you do let them go into the game that is comfortable for them, at the end of the game, look, beyond this split, Reckless and Froggen will make the right decisions, mate. They will play a clean team fight, or they'll get their own. Like, they actually know what to do when you give them the win. I don't know if Xerxes knows his win conditions.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just all these players that have a play style that's like weak side, or you're a farming jungler. Everyone just hates that narrative about themselves because they view it as like almost like a less manly way to play the game. There's like some like masculinity that's like questioned in there where they're like, what the fuck? Like, I can go and beat someone's ass. It's like, you don't need to do that. Like, you have an advantage. It's just a fucking video game. It's not even that deep. If you question anyone who's considered a passive AD carry, you know, a farming-based mid laner, a mage-only player, right? Yep. Anyone who's a mage-only player, somebody who's a efficiency-based jungler, a weak side top laner, you question any of them, they'll immediately tell you that they're not that.
They're all insecure as fuck, aren't they? They're all insecure as fuck about it.
It doesn't matter if it's Odo, Reckless, like, it just doesn't matter. They just hate that narrative about themselves.
Yes.
Where there's no shame in the fucking farming game. No. If you're getting wins, like, you're getting wins. That's what you're fucking paid to do.
To me, Dom, the analogy is like it's a bit like in poker or chess, mate. If someone's a super passive player, they can still be really good. And if you win, at the end of the day, if you win, who gives a fuck, you know, what people thought it looked like? You win.
Yeah, it's like being a defensive boxer. It's like fucking isn't Floyd Mayweather one of the best pound for pound? Exactly. Yep. Like that's just what it is. Like, you can win that style.
Yes.
Just embrace it. Like, don't listen to motherfuckers like me, like, flaming you for being passive.
Of course, yeah, exactly.
Like,
yes,
we're fucking content creators. Like if Reckless is playing like a bitch in game, Thorin is gonna flame him. That's just what it is. Yeah. Like, it just is what it is. It doesn't actually mean it's not that deep. Like, still trying to fucking win the game.
Yeah. Because the other thing with this as well, I've already teased this, but I've got a new piece of information, and this is a fucking banger, Dom. I've already said it, unfortunately, on some of the insight, but I'll tell you because you might be interested. I don't know if you heard it or not. Right? You know, the story with this team is this team was trying to get Jankos as well, but they had to end up getting Cersei in the end, and like the offseason didn't go that way. It's worse than that, Dom. I've heard that right now, the buyout for Jankos is very low 6 figures. So you can, in theory, buy him now if he was available for sale. I mean, look, he's not going to be sold right now, obviously, but you know what I mean? Like, the joke is, like, for future splits, in theory, if someone wants to overpay, you can get Jankos. Like, mate, anytime you can call someone up Jankos to join your team, that's pretty fire. The problem, obviously, here is why the fuck would he join XL? Like, just walk into a dumpster fire, like, don't worry, guys, I'll save you. Like, but that's a killer right there, because the joke is, now you've seen the team now, mate, if you did just take out Cersei and drop in Jankos, like, say that move happened in the offseason, Dom, I'm pretty sure Vethio's getting his fucking farming seat and lane and getting ahead and getting covered. And I'm pretty sure Otto, if he has to do the odd carry move, he's getting some support. And I'm pretty sure the bot lane wouldn't just be left fucking like the joke is, I actually think now, yeah, obviously hindsight 2020, but that would have been a sick move. That maybe could have made this team work. Because by the way, I do think Jankos is doing very well in Heretics.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You look at this team and it's just that the way that they naturally wanted to play the game, because that's what happens. You get together with players and you just play and you see what happens. And the way that they naturally play the game, they feel like it's bad. They're like, this isn't going to work. There's something missing. Like, it just feels off to play like this. So they're all trying to be players that they're not. When in reality, it's like you just have to buy into to who you are, yes, or you're just never going to fucking win a game. So, I mean, this is an angle where now I think 2 weeks it's legitimately so fucking broken because of all like the negativity. And like these players, a lot of them had pretty successful last years. Like no one had to deal with extreme negativity last year. Think about all the players, right? Odo was winning a championship, his first championship. Targamas won a championship. Everyone loved him. He was super hyped coming in from K-Corp. He won another championship. Patrick was respected within XL. Everyone thought he was good. Vetio is a fucking MVP. He might be one of the best mid laners. Yep. Xerxes, he's doing pretty good for being on Astralis. You get him on a good team, he might be good. They all were like in this positive bubble that now when they're it's been a while. Like they don't know how to. They're not used to fucking losing anymore. And I think they just need a roster change right now, or they're just not going to make it. I think they literally just need to start playing Duncan over Vetio in order to have any chance of making it further. Because the atmosphere is so doomed that change of pace, that like little honeymoon phase, might be able to push them over the edge. I don't think anything else is getting it done right now.
It's the thing with that one, Dom. Right? People might know I'm pretty famous for getting a bit stubborn and doubling down on players, and people know I'm a massive Vethio fan. I thought he was fucking amazing these last 3 splits. Here's the thing. In the context of the format, I agree. I would just roll the dice on this last week. Let Abadage play, see what happens. But here's the difference. I'll make it a little bit more nuanced than that. I would only do it for this week and try and get to groups. If it doesn't work, I would actually go back to Vethio. Because the thing is here, I'll tell you right now, if everyone else is out on this guy, I'm doubling down. Because if you get his head right, if you get the setup of the team right, if you even just figure out the jungler a little bit more, mate, if the bot lane if Patrick can just play an even fucking lane half the time, this guy eventually will be really good again. I'm just telling you. Here's the problem with a player like that, Dom, is the eye test doesn't lie like that. Like, he has to be good. He didn't just trick us all for 3 straight splits. Like... Because people are making it sound, Dom, like all he did was like, they make it sound like it was the funnel meta and a whole team funnel. He did nothing. He shit the game, apparently. And then even in team fights, logically, wasn't he then doing something to win the game? Like, people act like he's just fucking, they act like he's Adam or something, mate. He will eventually be a very good LEC mid laner again, in my opinion. Yeah. One of the top.
No, I think you definitely give him another shot. Like, there's no chance that you just put Abadage in and you're like, nope, that's it. And even if it works out, you're like, well, Vetio, you're shit. Like, you're never coming back. Abadage outperformed you. I think you literally just do it for this week to give yourself a chance, and then you go back to Vetio, give him another shot. Like, he's a good fucking player. He's a good fucking player, but he is like clearly extremely emotional right now. If you look at his tweet that he tweeted after the game, I mean, it's like it's week 2 and he's tweeting like how he's lost all of his confidence. Yeah. Like, he's built up that confidence for being really fucking good for 3 splits. And then in 2 weeks, his confidence is like 0. Like, he just needs like a mental reset. Like, I think that he's going to be a good player within LEC for years to come. It's just right now is not it, right? Right now is not it. And I think everyone benefits from it. I don't think that you replace him because he's bad or it's because it's his fault. That's just your most obvious sub, right? Like, that's the guy who you have as a sub. That's the player who, like Abadage, he was part of that Miracle Run, that Schalke Miracle Run team with Odo. Maybe they have some like vibes in there. Maybe that at least relieves some stress. It's like, oh, we did it before, we can do it again. Even if they don't fully believe it, that could be an angle to get just some amount of just like good mood within the team. Like, oh, like just give just some little motivation that you have. And I think Vetio needs a break too. Like, the last 2 weeks, it's really affecting his personal view of himself, and that's hard to come back from. So it's not because I think Vetio is bad. I just think that is your most obvious change you could make to give yourself a chance to make this playoff.
I think this team also shows you, Dom, the difference in mindset. Because remember, Vethio's a very young player. People are going to forget this is only his 3rd season in LEC. Like, he's not a guy who's super talented. And he's young. Like, isn't he like 20 or 21 or so? I think he's pretty young. People don't think people realize how young he is. So the problem with this as well is, look, he plays, Dom, like he's caps or perks or something. But he doesn't have the mindset yet. Like, one of the things, you know what? I'll even give you the example. I'll use Humanoid. I might flame the fuck out how Humanoid plays. Humanoid doesn't seem to get down. He still seems to think he's going to win the next game. He still picks like he's he's a Chad and gets what he wants. He still makes the play even if he fucking hits. Like, I'll give him that. Like, I actually like the fact he doesn't give up, he still keeps going. And as you saw last year, if things work out, if you keep going, eventually you can actually win the game. But the problem with the Vethio angle is, even though at the end of that tweet he tried to like rescue him, like, it's okay though, like I'll never give up. It's like, you just did give up, for you fucking idiot. You just did a tweet that the first sentence like completely alarmed your whole fan base and made all XL fans like kick this guy forever. So like, I just hope that was him wilding on Twitter. I hope he's fucking to reel it back in, because that was alarming, I will say, even with the like French angle, that like a lot of French players will be a little bit emo like that. I think we swap now, because I've just mentioned him. Let's talk a bit about Fnatic, Dom, because there's actually the problem with this team is this. They're even worse than I thought. They actually are. Like, for example, I'll tell you one thing I'm getting right now, because people are going to wonder, how is he going to flame Reckless this week? Like, let's be real. He's still not playing great. He wasn't playing as bad as week 1, where he did just do stuff like do 3 autos in a losing team fight that he wasn't in while his teammates all died with fucking Varus. So he did. That was week 1. Okay, week 2 was better. But mate, he still just seems so disconnected from their fights. Like, the difference is, I actually am getting G2 vibes, both from how Fnatic plays top side of the map and the comms. When you listen to the comms, right, even though Razork could be a bit emo, cause Wonder and Humanoid are troll players, they're making like that G2 vibe. It's all fun vibes when there's the pause and they're making fucking jokes, and Razork sort of gets drawn into it. The Rux guy tries to join a little bit. Reckless sits there silently. He doesn't vibe with it. It's like when he was in G2. Then in the game, they're doing all these mad skirmishes, Dom, where it's like, right, fucking Razork catches them. In comes fucking Wonder. Humanoid's doing damage, doing an ult. And then Reckless is walking like 10 feet behind them. Like, dude, if I was a mid laner like that, I'd be so tilted by that play. Because I always say to ADCs like that, look, I understand sometimes you have to stay safe and they could all turn and dive on you. But if you're not even like walking the edge of the damage range to do autos, what are you doing? You're just watching. Like, the joke there is, I'm not joking, if you take the Reckless equation out, some of the Fnatic players have actually had fights that were very good in these games. They were essentially winning on lesser numbers because the ADC wasn't there, or they're winning with like even numbers when it looks like they should have more, but Reckless is too far behind. He's not hitting them. So like, I have to say, I don't know. I think this team's, it's worse than the last year's team. It's even more dysfunctional because you don't have the upset carry factor, do you?
Well, that's what I don't understand, right? Because if you think about it, when last year we were doing these shows, we're like, yeah, upset is still really fucking good, but his team sucks. And the response to it wasn't even that we were wrong. It was that, well, if everywhere you go, your team always sucks, then you must suck. Like that's the angle that everyone always takes. Well, it must be something with like his attitude, right? Like, it's no coincidence that he's always surrounded by good players, but then they always play worse. It's like, what, are the players still mentally affected? Or is it like, because for some reason that just doesn't apply to other players? That's just an upset thing. If he hasn't won for a period of time, there must be some like unknown factor, or like the players that he could be playing with could just not be playing as well as everyone.
Let me just take that premise and we'll apply it to Reckless and show you how stupid those fans are. Are you ready? I'll do the same thing, Dom, except man's legit. If every time Reckless leaves Fnatic, it's a dog shit scenario, is it ever Reckless? He's gone to Elements, to G2. By the way, he's gone to 2 fucking championship lineups, the best in the whole league. Even in the ERLs, go back and watch Reckless fans. He wasn't even like the best fucking player on K-Corp or the best ADC. He was actually playing, he even looked like he phoned that in. But the difference is, Dom, I give him a pass for ERLs because I know how hard it is after being a top level player who shouldn't be in the ERLs to get kicked down there. It's like when Hooney was in Academy, you're not going to fucking try hard. But if you come back in LEC, and especially if you get a spot in Fnatic, homie, and you get it in these mad circumstances where you probably shouldn't have been on SK Gaming or Heretics or something, you better perform, man. This is your time. You've got I won't say you got the players, but you got good teammates.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest issue with Reckless is that he used to always be passive in his approach, but he was aggressive in his execution. So he would start a fight maybe too far back, but when he knew that he could win the whole fight, he would kill fucking. He's like, they're all low. I'm not in danger anymore. Everyone's fucking dead. And now it seems like he has the passive mindset throughout the whole fight, which I don't understand. Like, he's better than he's showing right now. I mean, I don't think this is his fault, but obviously, like, he's the new player. I mean, Razork is still inting in team fights sometimes. Humanoid just looks like regular season Humanoid. And, you know, Wonder is having good games sometimes. He's having bad games sometimes. He's making some more mistakes in team fights than you're used to. But I just think that, like, I feel like Reckless can be better than this. You know, like, he can definitely just go back to his mindset. Like, I don't know, we saw it with Fnatic before. The last time he was on Fnatic, it felt like he had that killer instinct. Even if sometimes people would die or go too deep, he knew when he could carry a fight and when he could turn. There's something missing with, like, his aggressiveness. It's like he's lost some like team fight vision, which used to be his strength. He used to have great team fight vision. Maybe his like response was a little bit too passive for my taste, but he was still one of like the ADC goats of Europe. I just feel like there's something missing. I've seen twice in team fights in the last week where he's ahead, right? Like he plays the first fight part of the fight good. Then there's like one or two people left. All their tools are used, which is one of the strengths of Reckless. He was very good at tracking flashes mid-fight. You knew this guy flashed, this guy used Prowler's Claw, that guy flashed, this guy has this ability up, this guy doesn't have this ability up, and he would know how to play the team fight with all that information. It seems like now, like the information is coming like too quick, and there's times where I'm like, dude, there's one guy left, and he has no cooldowns. You know this. You're a fucking beast AD carry player. That's the strength of you. Kill him.
Yes.
And then it just looks weird. It looks weird, like the Varus fight where he was with Jack Spectra at the end, and it's like 2v1. He's got a Varus reset, so he's got the attack speed. And he's lethality, and people will be like, oh, he's lethality, he shouldn't be auto-attacking. I mean, if you get an insane reset and you're autoing somebody with no fucking armor as a lethality Varus, you beat their ass. And he's spacing backwards, and then he goes for like a flash arrow at the end. Yep. Like Reckless used to, like, it used to be perfect mechanically when he would get in those situations. He would perfectly execute the end.
If people don't know, I never look, it's more personality and like the fact I thought he was overrated in the context of some of the Fnatic lineups with Caps or with fucking Expecki and Soaz. I never thought he was a bad ADC. I mean, if you ever go back, I used to say he was like second by whoever I thought was best, like, or third or whatever. But my problem at the moment is the joke is he's actually become like the Reddit narrative and the shit that like people think he has always been. He is a way better player than this and was in the past, even in his like early days. He was very passive, but he would, like you say, you get him into the fight, he will do the kills, and he will track things well. Like essentially, he's like one of those quarterbacks who can read the protection in the team fight all the time, isn't he? Like you say, when you know the tools are down, then you go in. That's even why I used to get mad at all the Pentas, because all the Pentas would be like, yeah, but look, no one could have done anything to him. He's just fucking cleaning everyone up. Like, but that is what you're supposed to do as ADC if you have a team that lets you do that. That job done. But I have to say, to bring it back, one problem I do have in that regard is like, I do wonder exactly like where he is because you can't ignore this. Like he does seem like he doesn't vibe with any of these teams. And that seems like that's somehow, I don't know why, like an important factor for him, or yes, there are people who care about him or trust him. I don't know what it is, but something. So it's like he's lost faith in his own game, mate. He's just lost it in his own game. It's so weird to me. So this guy should be a way better player than this. Come on.
It was a strange interaction. I don't know if you saw this. So they released like a Legends in Action video. And Reckless had a point where he like met 113 backstage. Now they're both in LEC. They obviously both played in K-Corp last year.
Yeah, sure.
And if you see that interaction, 113 looks like he's a fan. He looks like it's a fan meeting his eye. Like there is some weird dynamic where you see like most like teammates are like fucking with each other. Like if you see Perks and Wonder, they're like talking shit to each other. Or you see like, you know, two people, you see BB and somebody else, you see them just like talk shit, like chop it up real big, like, oh shit, like I'm gonna pop off on stage. So it's like, oh, you remember my fucking like GP from Scrims? That was my Scrim GP, or like something like that. It always have like these inside jokes, these like good vibes. Like even people that didn't necessarily get along, you'll see that type of interaction. It's like it's very strange to see the interactions with Reckless. It's like I don't understand why like there's no like, harmony there. There's none of that like, that bond. It's like I feel like when you watch his teammates, they're all like, or even if he doesn't actually hate them for some reason. It's like he's not able to convey that to them to make people feel comfortable. It's like he's so comfortable around him. It's just a weird pattern of behavior. People feel like you see Reckless, you know, go backstage and see somebody like Yango's who he played with, or even like the fact that he's on the team is wondering if you still interact, you think that they've never played together before. They've been a year on the same team.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know. It's very strange to me.
No, here's the problem with that. All I'll say, Dom, is now you know why, even when he was one of the best players, I always promoted, because I heard it from all his teammates and coaches, mate. This guy, we had a guy like this in CSGO. He's a French player called Shox. He was one of the best players ever, but everything has to sort of be his way. And you can't, listen, you can disagree with him, but you have to be very careful. You have to tiptoe around him. And you know what the nickname of Shox was from his teammates in CSGO? Princess. Well, guess what? That should be the nickname of fucking Reckless, mate. Like he like you're saying, that's the craziest part. It's not just that he doesn't respond when people banter him. Nobody banters him in these voice comms. It's why I actually, years back, did actually warn fucking Perks when he used to come on all my shows and say Reckless is really good. I was like, motherfucker, you wouldn't like it if you played with him. If you know the things I know, like for example, Perks is the kind of guy in a voice chat would banter you. Like, remember that time I beat you in that fight? Dude, you wouldn't say that, Reckless. I'm telling you right now. You would not fucking say that to that guy because you don't know how that might affect him. He might just close up completely. It's just a guy where he's just like, I mean, it's hard to explain because like cultures are different in this sense as well. But it's funny that because you know people like Treats who are Swedish, right? He's actually quite a forthcoming guy. He's a pretty fun guy. A lot of Swedish people are like way more reserved than that, and and unfortunately, as a culture as well, they have like a sort of an arrogance, a hubris. Like, we should be the best. We're Swedish. Like, so to me, Records just typifies a lot of that.
I must just know the wrong Swedish people.
You know the cool ones,
the
basically.
People I know.
Yeah,
I know like Rat. I know Yamato. Like I'm always on comms with like Treats. You know,
yeah.
like
yeah, they're all the outgoing ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that just hasn't been my experience, but I think it's just fixable though. Like it's like Reckless used to vibe with his teammates. Go look at like season 5 Fnatic. I mean, obviously they were winning, but it just seemed like when he was talking with Febby, like there was just that like fun, like hey, like we're like teammates, we're like the boys, you know, like that type of vibe. I just want to see him bring that back. I think he's just like impossible of doing that as a player. I just don't know if he doesn't value it or like. I'm just not sure where it comes from, but I just think that is just a better thing to have within a team. It just works better for some reason. So let's just bring that back and hopefully Fnatic can be, you know, a team again, because you have people that are trying to be like fun. Like when you watch Razork is trying to.
Yeah, he is. He's not as emo as he used to be, for sure.
You know, yeah, and then like even Humanoid, like Humanoid is somebody who likes to banter, you know, like he likes to like have some banter. He probably doesn't want to fucking grind a million games, but he wants to banter with his teammates. He wants to talk some shit. Just bring that back, and like the team will just feel better, man. Like at least even if the results aren't better, you'll feel better doing it. Like the process will be more enjoyable.
I will say, by the way, it's like I said before, look, as much as I do despise when he ints and when he plays so, I think I would say exploitatively or abusively with his teammates and just fucking sets them up for failure. The thing I actually do like, though, about Humanoid, I know this will sound mad, but it just goes hand in hand with being great players, typically, is he has that, like, arrogance. Like, if you ever hear Humanoid in an interview or a voice comm, dude, he talks like he's rookie and you're all the peons around him. Like, look, maybe I'll deign to fucking carry this. Like, it's mental. And the joke is, like, I'm like, look, I love that personality, but it just doesn't match up with your game right now. Your game is shit. So, but I agree with you though. Here's the difference though. This is why if you're a fan of Fnatic, Koi, as long as they get through this phase, it's fine. Because I agree. Like, here's one thing I think you could fix immediately. It's not like they lose the same way every time like XL-Dom. Like in the first week, Fnatic couldn't do anything early. Then they were having some good early games. Like, it's definitely a coordination thing again. It reminds me of last year's team in that sense. And I have one last thing I want to ask you about, which was, even though Rooks looked good, except for if people who watch them in IRLs as much, we're all just going off a limited sample size of Worlds in the first week. It does seem like if you look at the way they play, that is another issue, because it looks like in the draft, aren't you going to pretty much have to draft this guy like an engaged champion for him to be doing anything in these games?
Probably. But I mean, I think that you can work around that. Like just draft him and engage him. Just get some fucking wins. Just do whatever needs to be done. This is the problem that I have. It's what we talked about last time. It seems like teams are trying to like prepare for the long season right now.
Right.
This is actually a Band-Aid point in the season. Yes, you have to Band-Aid artists right now, do his best in this next week, and then maybe once you make best of 3, you have more time to try to figure things out. But this is Band-Aid time. You win right now, you're off for a month. I want to see them just buckle down. This is crucial crunch time right now, and it hasn't hit all the teams clearly.
Yes. It's like this show, you know, not everything's perfect. There's problems. We'll Band-Aid it. We'll get to next week. That's all it's about, guys. Get to next week. That should be the mentality if you're in Fnatic. And spoiler, if you actually look also, here's the other thing with Fnatic. To be fair, if you look, they play Mad Lions, Astralis, and SK, and they are already, remember, on 2 wins. So, like, I actually think, like, it's going to be one of them or Koi. One of them's going to have a good run and make it, you know. Someone's going to get out. Like, they've played some of the top teams already. And also, I actually feel slightly bad for Fnatic in the set. Like, they could have won that Vitality game earlier in the split. Like, there was times where they maybe could have won against G2. These are the 2 best teams in the league. So I agree with you. The difference is I haven't abandoned faith that this team could do something. They just have to get to the next stage and then we're good. We can start fixing things then. Don't have to worry about it beyond that. Let's go to Vitality then, Dom, because I know you want to fucking go in on this. Because this has to be the most perfect week ever for jungle specialists like you. Because literally, Bo showed exactly all the points you've been making about Yike, which is, brilliant when everything's scripted out. You have winning lanes, you're on the champion, you get all the kills. But what happens when you play someone who's better than you with the same scenario and he's just fucking you up, Obi, and you're a rookie? Like, this guy gapped that Yike guy, even though I do think the Yike guy's good.
Yike is good. I mean, it's just way easier to play with winning lanes. I mean, I would definitely say that Bo's a better player than Yike, which I don't even know why that's even mildly controversial. Yike is way better than expected, but Bo is like I mean, he's a freak. I mean, when you see he's by far the best Vi in EU. Who else can even play Vi in EU? Just think about all the other.
Oh, they're all trash, man.
We've had even some of the other good junglers when they play.
Yep.
Like Marcoon's Vi was, that was tough. I'm a huge Marcoon fan, right? Like one of my takes on the show was that I thought he would be top 3, or actually maybe that was I said that somewhere. That I thought he was going to be top 3 coming into the split. Even him, I mean, the Vi just isn't it. Vi is a very specific champion, so seeing like the mechanical proficiency is really nice, and it seems like he's smart about the game too. Yike is good. It just doesn't seem like he knows how to make like plays that have risk. Like when his team is ahead and he's able to just dive a lane that's already winning, that's fine. Like he can snowball really hard. But when he's in a situation where everything's even and like his play is either going to win or lose the game, it feels like he kind of just like shuts down. The biggest mistake in this game was when he's playing Udyr into Vi. So number one, let's just preface it with this. It is very hard to play Vi into Udyr. Just in general, like that is a matchup that almost no juggler wants to be on the Vi end of the Vi Udyr matchup because you get out cleared, you lose 1v1s at pretty much all points during the game. Like you can be invaded. The champion like scales pretty well. Like it's just not a comfortable time playing the Vi side of this matchup. And Yike had opportunities. He had timings where he actually could have gotten ahead, but he wasted those timings. And then Bo, once he got the lead, he just didn't let up. So the crucial points in this game are Udyr's covering a bot dive that's not happening at level 3 bot, so he's not getting his recall off in time. Then he full clears again. He's faster than Bo, right? Because just natural champion strength. He's faster than Bo. Full clears his jungle. He walks in to try to contest the Gromp at around level 5. Doesn't end up actually getting the Gromp. And then he starts Dragon, and Bo comes through, kills his bot lane, and Yike has to get off Dragon. So he just spends, 45 seconds plus like the 10 extra seconds early. He spends like a minute essentially getting nothing accomplished on the map where he should just be, in and out of his plays. Clear, base, clear again, take the crab. Like he needs to be accelerating the game and using that advantage to get a level lead, and he just wasn't able to do it. I mean, I don't think that means that Yike is bad or anything. People always misconstrue this. I just think that G2, as a team, they look really good when they're stomping, but when they're behind, they don't look great. They're just a team that people will always overrate because their wins look so amazing. They're winning a game in fucking 18 minutes a week. It's like, how could they be bad? Look, G2 are bad. No one wins as hard as they do. When teams start adapting to that and force them into like the close mid to late game scenarios, it hasn't been shown to me that they're actually going to be like a solid macro team and have that other level to their gameplay. Are they going to be early game stompers? Are they going to be like the noob stomping team in LEC, or are they going to be, complete across the board? I still think they could end up being the best team, but I mean, right now I thought Vitality not only outplayed them, I think they outdrafted them. And a lot of people say, oh, well, draft is just not really relative to your play. They view it as two different things. It's like, oh, well, if you got outdrafted, then it's hard to play. But the way that Vitality outdrafted is they remove the Draven, they draft like a poke lane, and then what is the answer? Because when you play that lane, which was, I believe, Varus Ashe. I mean, I normally, when I do these shows, by the way, and I don't have no power, I have like a whole spreadsheet up and I'm looking at the fandom and everything. So now I'm doing it all off memory, but I believe it was Varus Ashe. And the counter pick from G2 was Lucian Nami. That's not the most ideal thing possible. Like, they don't want you to end up in that.
Those are the right lanes. Keep going.
Okay. So in that lane, like that, they're not able to get a huge lead. They're trying to like scale at a certain point. They can maybe force off mid, but it seems like G2 is not that comfortable having those like specific timings where it's like, okay, we'll lose for this period of the game, but then like once we get into the mid game, we'll have the lead. That just doesn't seem like their style. They just want to shit down your throat from minute number 1. And to do that, it's very, very difficult on blue side because you don't have that many counter picks. Normally if that's going to be your style, then you're going to be a red side specific team where you can draft your counter pick lanes, you can leave your support counter pick, and you can make sure that you're in that situation. You can't do that on blue side. So maybe there'll be a red side specialist team and they'll have these good early game wins, but they just won't be able to, win when they're blinding their bot or they're drafting slightly weaker lanes.
Yeah, one thing to say on that is it's perfect that the 3 junglers you mentioned were obviously like Bo, Yike, and Marcoon, because I actually saw an interview and I want to take a quote from this and throw it to you because I think it's funny as fuck, because I think it's quite revealing about the way people's minds work and what might be going on in scrims, right? So there was an interview with Marcoon on a website called theloadout.com, and it was only done like a day ago, so it was after the last weekend. And basically, he was asked about both Yike and Bo. But here's what's going to be interesting, Dom. I'll read out the quote and I'll start with Yike, right? So for Yike, he says, for Yike, I think he's very, very good at pushing his lead when he has strong laners. So when when bot lane has prio, I think he's gotten like 3,000 gold leads every game. So in that area, I think he's very, very good. I'm very impressed. I just want to see what more he can pull out of the hat when he has weaker laners, or he needs to scale, or he's on the back foot a bit. I want to see how he develops in that area. What I love about that is that was actually very politically phrased, Dom. But he's basically saying all the things you're saying. Like essentially, the question is this. Would Yike be like an MVP candidate if I chucked him on fucking BDS? Probably not. You know what I mean? Astralis, no. That's sort of like, even though he kept using very, very good, he's sort of like giving a backhanded compliment in a way there, isn't he?
Well, honestly, ironically, I think he would actually be really good on BDS because BDS stomps their lanes. Their early game is actually really fucking good.
Sure, okay.
But I know what you
enough.
mean, like in the global scheme of things. I think on BDS, a fucking good fit because Crowny's doing well on lane. Adam's he would just smurf there too, but most of the time, I get what you mean. Like most of the time,
or an SK then
it's hard to do that. Like in game, I mean, everyone used to have fucking winning lanes. I think in SK he'd be much worse. Marcoon would be much better within SK.
And here's the problem though, Dom. Think about the way he actually built up Yike there. He said very, very good twice. Are you ready? What Marcoon says in this interview about Bo, I think is mental, mate. Because this is his quote. He goes, Bo is a very solid player. There's not much more to say about him. It feels fun to test my skills against him because he's just that solid. And I think Shio was kind of the same for me. I think he's just playing very solid. Right? That makes it sound like, is Bo just gapping? Is the gap in scrims your asshole, Marcoon? What the fuck are you talking about, mate? Like, he's not just a very solid player. He's a fucking phenom. This guy is a prodigy. And when you go, there's not much more to say. The joke is, I could fill an hour talking about this fucking guy. He's one of the greatest players to ever enter as a rookie in the fucking our region. Like I keep saying, we shouldn't even have this guy. He's too good. Like, that makes me feel like Marcoon's like, it's like he's building up Yike and they sort of like, well, you know, and then Bo's just very solid. It's like, what has he done wrong? What, Marcoon, if you ever wake up and have a week like that, I hope you just go, well, I was just very soft. Fuck off. That'd be the week of your life. Even right now, you're not as good as Bo. Come on. Show respect, you know, hail to the king.
To be fair, yeah, so I think it just comes from like his game that he played against Bo, right?
Was
like,
he beating, right?
To Maokai,
okay.
Bo. Okay. So he probably just feels like, oh, that guy wasn't
okay, he's feeling it. Okay.
Special.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. I mean, let's see how it goes when you're off. You know, you're off your picks. Like people are going to start banning Elise versus you, and you're playing against the Bo Vi. You're not playing against this Maokai because Maokai is just a fucking like Maokai's not a Bo champion. I mean, he's able to pilot it, and it's not like it's not bad or anything, but it's also not clearly.
Well, he must have picked that for the draft or something. Exactly.
Yeah, and that was also a game where it felt like they were testing out a theory that they had, which was, oh, if we draft Maokai, we need to draft AP. We need to draft an AD mid laner. We want to draft AD with AP mid jungle because we don't want them to have access to Merc treads and all that stuff. And they tried to go the Tristana mid with Maokai in order to have that good damage split and win through mid jungle. And just they ended up in a weird situation, right? Like Maokai is not good versus Elise early game, and then Tristana is bad into Syndra. So even though the pairing of champions is good, what they're playing against doesn't make the pairing good. So to me, it's I don't know, like. That just was a missed draft from Vitality. It seems like they tried something out that didn't work out. I wouldn't take that game and be like, oh, this is like exploiting something about Vitality because Vitality hasn't drafted like that versus other teams. And it seems like they're completely capable of blinding things for perks. Like the last game they played on blue side before that, I believe they were playing Syndra, right? They played Syndra into Astralis. So they're able to play the other side of things. They can blind these strong champions, Azir, Syndra, and just play a normal game. They don't need to go for this. So I think that game might be slightly warping his perception of how strong Vitality and Bo really are.
Yes, that's just his safe space in his mind, Dom. After a scream, he just goes back to that memory of like, no, it's fine. I can control him. I can handle him, you know. It's like, homie, he ain't going to be on that Maokai now when he plays you again. If you play him in those groups, he's going to fucking booty slap you. Just wait for those groups, mate. It's going to be good. So, okay. Anyway, by the way, I do still like Marco. He's still a legit guy. I just thought that was a funny way to phrase it. Right, one team we should definitely talk about, Dom. Because, well, actually, to be fair, let me think how I do it. I think we've talked about G2 enough there. I think one team we should talk about, because there's another team we have to give their flowers to, because I thought they'd be way worse than this. It's obviously Mad Lions. Like, Mad Lions is having some pretty good fucking games every now and then. Yeah.
Yeah. They're looking better than I actually like the for him. I'd like to see Hillsong play more of that style in lanes. You know, give them the enchanter, and then you play your Ash. You play something that can actually abuse the person, as opposed to just being like Lulu, Nami. These are just not Hillsong champions. So I feel like their bot lane is doing better than expected. They're not having these huge down games. They're surprisingly good in lane. Okay, so I want to see them play the aggressive bot lanes and no more of like the Lulu, Nami type of stuff. I mean, they can play it every now and then, but I want to see their main goal to be getting Hillsong an aggressive pick bot lane so he can punish bot. And I think the thing for me that's most surprising is seeing Chasey's play, because this guy is solid. I don't know what it is with imports and LEC this year, but like outside of Ruby, most of them look fucking good. Like Chasey looks top 3, Photon looks top 3, Bo is the best jungler in LEC right now. Like you're getting really high quality imports in the LEC currently. So I'm impressed with that. I think that their team just has a better dynamic. Like this Chasey guy is already more diverse than Armut was after just 2 weeks of play.
And I will say as well, I actually thought this, if you remember, this was a topic I did bring up all last year on the Rogue team, which is the success of Malrang and the way they integrated him into that team. Because let's be real, it's not like Malrang is just like balling. Oh my God, it's the way they used him in the team. That makes me think, and I predicted it then, you will get more imports into the LEC, and you've seen it now. Like if you look now, Bo, Photon, it's like at this point in time, here's what's going to happen that's going to be cool if you're a fan of LEC. I think what will happen is, just like Prince going to fucking LCS, if you're on like the 8th best LCK team, or you're just a good challenger player who hasn't got a spot on T1 or Gen G, you might gamble and say, I'll try and prove myself in another region. Maybe I'll go to LEC. Maybe I'll go to LCS. Like, that'll be cool because it means we get even more talent. Like, that's the point. The LEC is fucking stacked with talent now. There's so many good players. Even the bad teams have good players now.
I like seeing the community respond to the imports, because it seems like the players like Photon, like Bo, people are really embracing them, especially from the situation that like Bo came from. It's not like he was, super loved in China and he could just go back anytime he wants. He was literally blacklisted from all the LPL teams. No one wanted to touch him. He needs to get a spot in another region. And it seems like, he's trying to speak English. If you watch a stream, he's speaking English. He's creating content. He's trying to tweet. He's trying to gain the Western fans behind him. And it seems like they're actually, appreciating what he's bringing. So I think that it's actually a really healthy dynamic, and especially like Europe is pretty diverse. I mean, obviously people like Frostkern will be like, oh, there are lots of white people, but there's a ton of different fucking cultures in Europe, right? So like, I think that it's just a nice like fit. Like everyone's like getting all there. It's just nice to see. Like, I don't know.
And by the way, I also agree. Bear it in mind, here's the other thing. If I have to flame someone on shores, because I actually like Hillsong, I even used to like his style of play when he was at his best. But I will flame the fuck out if you play like shit in Abomination, you lose games for your team. Not least because I hate people who just blow the game and int for their team. I'll give Hillsong his props. He's turning it around. Like they're finding the right fucking picks for him. Like you say, that lane somehow, bizarrely, it doesn't make any sense. It's just way better in lane than you'd think. They're supposed to both be the two shit lane players at this point, but they're actually getting it done somehow. So props to them. Fair play. Mad Lions. I'll tell you what, this just proves again, that coaching staff just knows what they're doing. They might not be the best, but they're clearly very good or at least above average. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think they're solid for a reason. I mean, they have good philosophies around players, and I think that they're good at cultivating a good environment. Even when they had that bad split at the beginning of last year, it didn't seem like super depressing. I was like, damn, it sucks that we lost. Like, we could have done some things better. It didn't feel like it's all doom and gloom. So I think that the way that, I mean, when you just talk to Mac, it seems like the way that he's able to deliver criticism, it never seems like he's like upset with you, Like he's trying to help you. He seems like a very he's a guy that builds you up, and it just works for the team, and it's worked well for LEC.
Promise this,
some of the coaches.
As you're saying that, though, I'm remembering this is only from it was, to be fair, it was from over a week ago. It was before this last week. But Mac did do an interview, though, where the quoted headline, that's what you were making me think of, though. This is the problem. I think he has a lot of strengths. And I think actually is it seems like he really vibes with the personality of the player, and he figures out how to help them develop, and he figures out how to put them in a team. But here's the problem. He had a quote that I thought was mental. This is the quote. He goes, I don't like to look at players in terms of who is good, air quotes, and who is bad. I think it's all about who is good under which conditions. Like, even though I totally agree, it's like, there are distinctions between who is good and who is bad, right? Like, Like, it's not like you just go, well, I mean, these players, yeah, they're Astralis players, 113. You know what? We can't really say 113 is bad, though. It's more like what conditions it. Like, I'm sorry, I can objectively, Mark, tell you 113 is bad, and I wouldn't choose him for my team. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's pushing that one a bit too far. Because I understand in Mad Lions, you're going to have rookies, and you're going to have to make dodgy choices like a Kazi or a Hillside, but like, you might be overplaying your hand on that one a bit, Mark.
Well, I mean, look, to be honest, that just seems like how he is. You know, if you went to his team, he never thinks you're shit. It's like, we just have to get you under the right conditions. Our moves, the right conditions are we pick you Gnar. If we don't pick you Gnar, those are not the right conditions. You're going to be a shit player. So like, you know, that's just who he is as a person. But I mean, for the personalities that he has, I think it's really good. You know, like certain personalities vibe with that. If you sent him to a team like Fnatic, maybe they'd all just fucking look at him and they'd be like, we don't fuck with the positivity over here. But I value that type of coach. I mean, I definitely think that they're a coach for a specific team, but he's gotten his results and he seems extremely competent at what he does.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one thing I'll even say as well is the reason, not just from winning, they've created a good environment in that team is, that big fear a lot of us had is like, maybe Elyoya just sort of feels like he has to phone the year in. Like, what the fuck? This was supposed to be my year. Dude, Elyoya seems to be loving it. He's vibing with it. He's having good games. Like, that hasn't been an issue at all. Of all the teams you could have predicted that for, it's actually worked out pretty well. By the way, as an aside, for purely flame/comedic purposes, I have another quote headline I want to bring you because it's relevant to this topic. This one, look, in the same way as I like Jizuke, but at the same time, if I had like a top team, I'd gamble on Jizuke if I was like Misfits or like, Origin or something. If I did have GTO, I'd never sign Jizuke because I like also the fact that like, lol, he's hinting like, haha, but like I wouldn't want to be his team and have that obviously. But in the same way, I do like Armo. Like I like his personality. But mate, this is egregious as fuck. Are you ready for this quote? They asked Armo, and this was on, let me check what the website was. This was on Deserto. They asked Armo what went wrong with Mad Lions in 2022. Are you ready for this quote? He goes, I think we had a huge downgrade with the roster, and it also affected the rest of the players. Are you ready? Like me, Elyoya, and Kaiser, I think we were really affected by the downgrade gameplay-wise. Homie, you were the downgrade. You were the downgrade. No, it wasn't you, Elyoya, and Kaiser were affected. Kaiser and Elyoya were affected like a motherfucker by your downgrade. Niski, the MVP of the split, he wouldn't do great in playoffs. He was affected by your downgrade in the playoffs. You could only play one champion, and you weren't even a guaranteed win on that one. So all I'm going to say is wind that in, because this reminds me, I've told you, it's one of our favourite ones of all time, of all those mental The Shy interviews where he's like, yeah, sometimes me and Rookie have it hard because the others all int around us and we're just playing like a really solid game. And I'm like, I imagine Rookie just like, are you for real? Are you serious right now? It's me who has that problem. Like, dude, this guy must be so, in a way I like, but it's so bad. He's so delusional.
Well, I mean, it's like, I don't even know if it felt like a downgrade. When you look at like Karzi's year and Unforgiven's year, most people had Unforgiven as a just better player than Karzi. Yeah. So, I mean,
so who's he flaming? Exactly, who's he flaming there? He's basically flaming fucking Unforgiven Enrique. Yeah, I know, like... Brother, come on. That's so mad. I just thought I'd bring that just for comedic purposes. I had to bring that one in. It's all good. Right, what about... Look, let's be real. I've left them till the end, Dom, because I have to say at the moment, they're just a pretty boring team. It's got to be Koi, right? Right, the problem with this is, like, let's be real. If you know the Koi players, and you've seen them all play in all their past teams, you've seen them play for long enough years, look, we can go in on the Shigenda angle, but the other players eventually, like, look... They're just like a bad version of Rogue at the moment. Like, they are probably going to get it together, and clearly some of those players are still good players and could be good players. The problem I have with Koi is what makes them boring, Dom, is they are the team where it seems obvious that if they get to the next stage, they'll start to pick it up. The problem is, though, they don't... It's hard to see how they're going to come together and be really good, I feel like they're going to get it together, and it's going to be... It's like what we said in Fnatic. They're going to be like the fourth best team. You know what I mean?
I mean, maybe. I mean, I feel like they'll be lucky to be the fourth best team. Like
talking about if at the end of the group, go on.
For me, you watch their play and they're not even good on their rogue comps. That's what's scary to me. When I look at other teams, I'm like, well, you guys are not embracing yourselves, but they're playing what they were really good at, and they're just getting their asses beat in lane. Like Exakick and DOS just handed it to Trimby and comp. Like that was fucking crazy to watch. I was so impressed with this game's all, and they're actually able to win that lane because that's something that never works for anyone. If you take the Lucian first pick and you give away a Nami to the enemy team, normally the Lucian is just fucking useless. But their Lucian Yuumi, they actually just stomped them in lane. They stomped Ezreal and Nami in lane. So it just seems weird. It's like everything that we said from Malrong, where it's like, oh, this isn't going to work forever. Like this, like, really aggressive style, it has its downsides. Like you end up really behind every game and there's issues. And it just never ended up panning out. Like, I mean, there was points where it did end up panning out, but like they ended up winning summer, obviously. Koi won summer, Rogue won summer. Now it's actually seeming like yeah, no one is losing to Malrong. Malrong is just behind every single game, and no one is ahead, and then they're not able to get it together. And then Segenda, to me, he just looks like he's trying not to look bad. It doesn't look like he's trying to fucking win the games. Yeah. He's like, oh, it's like the mentality is my teammates are really fucking good. They're able, I like do my job, and I don't like we'll win. That's what he thinks is going on. Which to me, it's like, dude, when is he gonna make a fucking play? When is he going to show who he is? Everyone hyped him up to me, was telling me, oh, he's one of the best Camille, like Jax and what he say, Camille, Jax, and Fiora. He's one of the best at those three champions in Europe. But even when he plays those champions, it just feels like he's there. He's just side laning. He's farming. He's not doing anything that really makes me feel like he's just some insane player. I just, the mentality seems off. I really, really, really dislike how he uses his leads. And just even the way that he plays his champions. Part of playing those champions is that once you have kill pressure, you're supposed to put yourself in that skill fight versus the enemy team. Or versus the enemy top laner. You're supposed to just take that like 1v1 and outplay them. Like where you're going to have to flash a key ability, or you're going to need to, parry something, or you're just going to need to outplay them in some regard. And it just feels like he never takes that. He's like, I've got my like 10 CS lead. I'll base, come back with more items. I'll try to gain like another 5 CS lead. And by the end of it, nice. It's like 20 minutes in, he's gotten played around. He has his like 15 CS lead on Renekton, and then it's fucking useless in the game. I don't know. It just seems very weird watching him play. I feel like the mentality is off. And to be honest, he looks exactly like he looked last time he was in the LEC. I don't see any growth within that last year of LFL that makes me think that he's suddenly transformed into a real beast top laner, which is what he's always been hyped up to be. Yep. One of the best top laners in EU.
On the point of the Malrang one, it actually is the same exact thing if people don't know in CSGO. In CSGO, right, the equivalent is you'll get like entry fragger players who play like hyper aggressive. So you might know from back in the day, S3E3. In the modern day, there's a Brazilian player called Art who does this. And what they do is their whole game is it's gimmicky. It's like a psycho style. They just have a million different like openings and angles to go super aggro and like push through a smoke or run in with no utility or do like a crazy flank or someone. The problem with it is, Dom, is I always say the same thing as an analyst. It's like, yeah, it's brilliant. When it works, it's going to look great, but that cannot work long term, and it's not a consistent style. You can't build your team off that. So the problem is, when it works, you're going to think you're a genius, but when it stops working, by the way, it stops working really badly. There's no fallback. That's why I know also the Bo guy's a prodigy, because he doesn't just force it like that. In the games, he doesn't have to. He can also just play fucking the Mao guy and be all right. And then on the Segenda one, I think you've been kind to him there, Dom. I'm going to go harsher than that. This guy has been brought in over IWDominate, and he has had all of his carry picks. He has had the strongest picks in the whole meta, and he still doesn't even look good. And as you say, he does nothing. Dude, this guy is making the Cassante look balanced as fuck. You know what I mean? Like, this guy, I'm not scared if this guy picks Renekton. Why would I be? What's he going to do? And even if he got like some labor, it's not going to do anything in a team fight. Like, so, I look, it's only 6 games, but so far, Shigenda is a bust in Koi. I'm going to say it. Because the problem, Dom, is this. He ain't playing weak side. They are playing his fucking champs. They're treating him like he should be the carry.
Yep. And it's just, what does it result in? Like, look at the first game. And it's not all up to him. Like, they obviously have to set up the team fight well, but it doesn't look like he's doing his best, and the rest of the team just isn't able to match his level of aggression, or they're not able to follow up his engages in team fights. Go over and watch another player who's known for these same picks that's also a rookie. I know I always talk about LPL, but look at the You Should Know Me guy on IG. He's getting all these picks, and he's carrying the fucking game. Not only is he winning lane, like he's solo killing versus the best top laners, people like Breathe. He's fucking winning the whole game for you. It seems like he just knows how to use these champions later on.
Yes.
It's weird, man. It's weird. There's definitely other problems, but the Segenda, the player change, I mean, I just don't see where the upside is. It doesn't seem like his carries are better. And the biggest fear that I have with this Koi lineup is if they just turn Segenda into just a bad version of IWDominate, where they go back to like, you just start playing the weak side. Like, all right, whatever. We tried playing your carry.
It'll be like Finn back in the day when they had him, but worse.
Yeah. Where it's like,
without the pop off.
Like, so you're not even playing his perceived strength. So now you've just downgraded your roster. You played the same way, but with a player that's worse at that style, and now you're just a mediocre team. Which, to be honest, when they're playing Renekton, that's the compromise, right? The Renekton, the Cassante, that's them slowly starting to go back. If next week we just see Ornn again, I've given up. I've given up on the fucking team.
Right, here's the joke. I think Shigenda, one of his big problems is branding, because he needs to change his alias and swap it with the top laner of SK Gaming, because he's fucking irrelevant. There you go. You like that? Oh, you know what? I won't go into the reason, but this is slight beef there, but we'll get into it another episode. Maybe it's more fun. Right? The problem, spoiler, also, as I said, I think it's a pretty boring team, and there's nothing for me to get hyped about. I have no reason to really big him up. So I don't think we're going to talk about every team on this one. Like, for example, spoiler, I think we just skip Astralis, but I don't give a shit. I just don't care. Look, I'll give them this. All right, let's do like a minute or two. What I'll say about Astralis goes like this. One, fair play to Kobe, because no matter how bad a team he's on, if you put him in the right spots, he will sometimes have some good games. Fair play, he's had some. And that Yonghoon guy is still cracked. That guy should be on a way better team, in my opinion, mate. He's the other reason why they should be getting imports. You won't find any RL player that'll just walk into LEC on the worst teams and play like this guy does. Like, I think the Yonghoon guy is a really good bright spot on that team, even though I think the team is dog shit. And I think the signing of 113, that GM, like, homie, you should be on thin ice right now. That is an appalling signing. I think that was one of the worst of the whole offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that a player was known as like one of the worst. Like, people blamed 113 for being on K Corp and not allowing them to get through play. Like, they didn't even make it to the end of playoffs. They didn't even qualify for EU Masters from LFL in summer. And then he got upgraded. Somehow he made the LEC. That's crazy to me. Like, why not take somebody like Skeens? I know Skeens ended up going to K Corp. Maybe he actually chose that, and that's why. But there's just much better players than 113. He looks fine on Viego. He looks not great on everything else. Finn is worse than I expected. I thought that he would go back to, having some good games, some bad games. Now he's had like a tragedy every single he has a tragedy every single game in top lane where he just like ints the entire game for no reason, even if he has the lead.
Yep. Except
for the game that they ended up winning versus XL, where somehow he was solo killing IWillDominate, which to me, it said more about XL and their mindset than Astralis. I'm disappointed in Finn, Dayor, and like, even I thought 113 would be slightly better in some of these games, but I mean, the bot lane, you definitely can't blame. They're really getting it done. Like, they should have been able to win the off bot lane as well. Like, that was a huge angle to get a win. They had like 40 CS lead. They took all 5 plates without Herald. And then 113 just walked to objectives and started them and gave them to the enemy team. It was like, what the fuck are you doing? You're actually you're playing 6v4. You are helping the enemy team. Can you just sit in your jungle and farm? We literally don't need you to do anything. Astralis is just disappointing. They're just one of those orgs that you just hate to see. They remind me of Golden Guardians in the LCS, where they just consistently put together mediocre to bad rosters. Even if they luck out and they get like a 7th place or an 8th place instead of being dead last, I don't give a fuck. It's just one of those teams that it doesn't really prioritize winning within the LEC. They're just there to leech off everyone else.
Yes. This is why, by the way, I feel quite justified. I have never really fucked with Finn. People know that. Even when he's had his pop-offs and it really is in the meta turn, he's having the Kled game, and even on XL, that first split where he was looking good when he came back, I don't give a shit, mate. Like, the real reason I don't like this play, I'll be simple as this. It's not the idea. He's not really like a weak side player. No, that's all fine. You can be a carry player and you can be a player with specialist champions. His problem is this as well. When he fucking has a bad game, he ints like a motherfucker. He doesn't just have he can't play safe. He can't play from behind. You know what I mean? He just ints. And it's gross. Because as you say, on this team and in the era when there's carry tops, I would have thought he would have been the main bright spot along with Yonghoon. Like, at least Finn's like popping off. They've got a win conditioner. 113 should play it. Like, no, he even looks bad. I'm with you. I think it's pretty shit. So, I'm agreeing with you. The difference is, remember, the bottom 4 teams are Fnatic, Koi, and XL. Dude, even XL still has a path back to being good or getting something together. Astralis is just bad. Like, the joke is it should have 2 S's. It's just Astralis, and it's fucking garbage. So, right, the last team I left is because this team is another team that's probably going to be in the group, so I think it's a fun one to discuss. It's the Heretics team, isn't it? Because at the moment, it actually looks like we all mildly slandered this team a bit. Like, it's actually a little bit better than I thought. But I did notice, and this is what I want to get your thought on, you're not vibing with the Ruby angle at all. Even if he has some big games, you don't vibe with him. What's off about this?
I don't vibe with Ruby at all. I think Ruby is not good. Okay, so for me, Heretics is fake. They actually should be bottom 2. Like, they should be bottom 2. They're not going to be bottom 2. So I'm going to end up I put them 9th, right? They're not going to be bottom 2 just because other teams are more shit than them. Like they're just collapsing even harder than Heretics is collapsing. But Heretics is they're surviving so hard off just Evie getting Cassante every game. Ban fucking Cassante versus team. That's all I have to say. Ban Cassante, they're going to be bottom 2. Like, to me, it just pisses me off that teams are still giving him his champion.
You don't think if he comes out with a Jax or something, he'll have a good game and carry?
No, 100% no. 100% no. I think he is literally Cassante one trick. If you take him off it, he'll be playing like Ornn or Nectin.
Okay.
He makes so many map mistakes throughout the game. And because he's on Cassante, he just has a crutch. I am just becoming an Evie hater at this point. But to me, it just makes no sense. Like, what is this draft prep? He's played one champion 6 games in a row. That's so great. And he's looked good in most of the games. Who gets to play the same champion 6 times in a row in second phase of draft? They're not banning it even 4 or 5. Like 1, 2, 3, maybe you have to ban out Yuumi and other like really broken champions on the patch. Maybe you're playing against teams that have a good Draven player, or like, you want to take Wukong away from Jankos. Maybe there's some other angles that you have there, but like at least ban this fucking Cassante 4 or 5. This is crazy to me.
So here's the mad analogy. So basically, it's not that, he just hasn't been tested on the other ones and he has like secret. It's not like Dom. He's on crutches. He's got a crutch, but he also, it's just he's waiting for his leg to heal. And then when he gets his chance, he can run again. It's like he's on crutches, but he only has one leg. You take the crutches away, he's fucked.
There you go.
It's a bit of a bad analogy, but whatever. So, okay, here's the thing. I do want to focus on this, though. Mate, I do actually feel bad for Jankos in this fucking team, bearing in mind some of the teams I heard he could have been on and with teammates. Because here's the thing. If this is an example, I want to get your take as a jungler on this, because I feel like over the years, one thing I've tried to do with great players is learn to look in games they lose where they probably couldn't have won. The teammates aren't good enough. The draft was wrong. Like, what do they do? And especially for junglers, how do they play when like they shouldn't be able to win? Like the other guy should be better. The guy should be ahead. The guy should be gapping you. Because, mate, I think even though he occasionally had bad games last year, I think Jankos is one of the best junglers ever in the West at playing in those scenarios, like behind, sometimes against a better team. Like, mate, when he played against like the fucking, I can't remember if it was Yike or Bo, which one of them it was. It's like he was just matching them everywhere on the map. Like the guy still has the mind for the game. Like I still feel like he's a good player.
Yeah, he's still smart. It's just a bad match for him. It's just a really bad match. Like he's really, really smart at playing around like competent laners and knowing what they need. But his players are like, they're just making really egregious decisions at bad, like weird times. Like if you watch Ruby in some fights, or if you watch, like Evie TPing in, he's playing with people that have such like losing tendencies that he's not even able to like direct them. He's not able to be like, oh man, like this is how we need to play the fight. Or he does that and they just don't fucking listen and they just do whatever the fuck they want to do. I just think it's a really bad matchup for him. The one person I do want to talk about though, Jack Spectre. Really,
I thought you did. Come on.
He had a sick game versus Fnatic. Like that was a really fucking hard game to play Zeri in. When they have the Gwen that's super far ahead and the Vi, and the way he was able to space, like the way he was able to keep himself alive, I thought that was really, really impressive. So props to Jack Spectre. We hadn't seen him have like his coming out party yet in LEC, but that last Zeri game, I thought he deserves a lot of credit for that, because if he doesn't play at like a S+ tier level, if he plays just okay, they lose that game. If he plays just good, they lose that game. He had to play fucking phenomenally in some of those fights in order to win. So props to him.
Well, being as the 3 games for Heretics is they start with XL, then they play Mad Lions, then they play BDS, right? They're probably going to make it because they are on 3 wins if people don't. And they have already, let's see, I think they've obviously beaten some top teams even. Let's see, they beat Fnatic, Koi. I mean, I know these aren't top teams now, but they were supposed to be, like they weren't supposed to get these wins on the schedule. So basically what we're saying on this one is you're previewing it more for the groups, but in the groups, they're going to be the frauds, right? They're going to be the bottom team. When we have BL3s, etc.
They might go 0-3. I think they legit could go 0-3. The XL1 is obviously the freest win, but they could go 0-3 and still make it in. I could see that happening.
The problem with that is, though, that's where I do think having Peter Dunn helps you. Because, like, again, first of all, there might be a game where some dickhead doesn't ban the Cassante. Then if Peter Dunn just gets a nice draft off, like, essentially you only have to win probably one game, right? One game could probably get you through.
Yeah, I mean, they have, like, ridiculous chance to make it. They could win 0 and still make it through. During this episode, LEC released their percentages. So actually, I said something incorrect on the show, and I know everyone loves the gotcha moment. BDS hasn't qualified. They only have a 99.7% chance of making it through. So
Well, here's the thing, Dom. You know it. Me and you, we're winners, so we get a 99% chance. We know it's great. Cadril right now, his butthole you wouldn't be able to put a fucking cent through it. People know the reference from the XL 1 years ago with the 99%. You know, I'm talking the playoff percent. Whatever, y'all get it. Y'all get it. Y'all get
blaming
it.
Cadril for what?
Y'all
All right,
get it. I know exactly. You know,
right,
he's doing a pretty good job in general. Right, here's the thing. I think we've done it all there. What I'll do, spoiler, I won't say who, but I'll probably for the next one, because people don't know, next week's episode will obviously be after this last week, and then we'll be previewing the playoffs, which begin, not the playoffs, sorry, the groups, which are the GSL best of 3 groups, which we're all looking forward to. So on the next one, I'll probably get an actual guest in, and we'll mix it up more. And obviously Dom's into work by then. So
hopefully.
Basically, we're starting off slow, we're ramping up and getting good, but we're not shit. So we're not playing it coy. So that sort of worked. Goodbye. Oh, remember, Power Spike, summoning Insight VODs on the channel. Like the video if you want to help us. Subscribe to the channel. If you're on Twitch, chuck a Prime there. It's not like fucking Tyler Ward and Pokemon need any more money, do they? You know, wouldn't you rather listen to Dom do more stuff, historical, whatever? Just put some money in. Or, if you're broke, just fucking shut the fuck up and like the video. You can still do something, you little brokey bitch. Right, that's it. Say your piece.